Good to see you, gamers. Hey, for any millennial players out there around my age, my heartfelt thanks for giving this video a chance. I know that the past is hard to see through anything but rose-colored glasses. And hey, maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe the original Final Fantasy VII is just as thrilling to play through today as it was when it launched in 1997. Well, I got them both here. The original and the 2020 remake. Whew. Let's see what I enjoy revisiting the most. Oh yeah.
Are you all right?
I'm fine. You guys good to go? As good as I'll ever be.
It's on you.
I got this.
Let's go.
Turn! Oh my god.
Now! Get in there!
Yep, I hear you loud and clear.
Soundtrack. A choir. There's a choir in the soundtrack.
Welcome to Wall Market, the pleasure capital of Midgar that's got everything for everybody.
Square, cross, circle. Square, cross, circle.
I believe in
Squat. Squat.
Slow and steady. 1, 2.
Where's the guide? Oh, damn it.
Yeah, Joel. Show that sissy how it's done. In motion.
That it?
I guess I'll pick this. I don't know. Does it really matter? Cool. Wow! Oh, look, she's wearing something different. Whew.
Heya.
That's really...
Yeah.
This is a boss? Yeah, I guess this is a boss. dodge.
Not bad.
Gotcha, you dog. Attack. Attack. Oh, heal. Attack. This music. Holy crap!
Tonight marks a new beginning.
For Shinra!
You gotta be better than this. If you're gonna play the hero.
Well, I've concluded that the remake is definitely better. But that's not what's important. What matters is, can I convince you to view Remake in at least a slightly more positive light?
I'm not here to tell you that Remake is flawless. It's got padding issues, pacing issues, and an entire metaplot device mechanic that needs a whole other episode to dissect.
Are you blind?
However, my point is simply this, that Final Fantasy VII's Remake includes sublime combat, much-needed infusions of character depth, and an entrancing world, most of which isn't simply a result of better technology.
I'm Shep from Gaming Introspection, and I'm inviting you to compare 3 crucial elements of Final Fantasy VII as I argue that the remake, yes, the remake, is better than the original. If you haven't cringed hardcore or dropped your jaw in revulsion yet, let's get to it.
Come on, let's teach him the Turks two-step.
Let's be honest, Final Fantasy VII's combat was simply a continuation of the even more old, more archaic Final Fantasy games, like 3, or 6, or whatever you want to call it. Gauges build up, you attack, or you heal and pray to God, or the creator, or whatever your higher power or spirituality is, that the insta-kill moves of big bosses don't get you before you heal everyone. Honestly, only the limit breaks offered anything new when it comes to fighting, and it was mostly just a one-click and forget move that you knew would kill things. Not only that, but everyone could do everything, and for the most part, just as effectively as everyone else. You could be armed with a big sword, a staff, a gun, or fangs, but it was just... Stats were almost identical too. Characters existed as part of the world and story in their own way. That much is true. But in combat, almost nothing needed to be done to differentiate anyone. Especially since you could just swap the materia orbs, Final Fantasy VII's form of magic, to anyone at any time. Enter the remake. Everyone's battle style is completely unique. So much so that they have introductory tutorials for each. Cloud obviously slashes with his sword, Barrett shoots things, or awkwardly shambles with those melee weapons. Tifa links attacks together in insanely satisfying combos, while Aerith uses magical projectiles, which, given her aptitude for magic, makes a lot more sense than this.
Why would a white mage with bony arms lunge forward violently with a blunt instrument in an attempt to kill something? Even as a kid, I thought Aerith's attack was odd.
The transition to fully 3D environments makes the different styles realistic and satisfying. Barrett switching targets and sniping annoying machine gun sentries gives a nice endorphin boost, as opposed to Cloud attempting to jump up like a maniac one slash at a time. Cloud, though, has so many fun abilities, like triple slash that moves him around the battlefield quickly, target to target, and an entirely different sentinel type of mode that slows him down into a countering badass that punishes enemies' careless assaults. The added incentive of blocking just right feeds right into the more real-time, active participation mood of the combat. But it doesn't alienate the purists. If you're a die-hard OG fan, you can still stop the action and singularly send out spells, items, and abilities among every single party member, so you have so much more customizability. It's immensely satisfying to use each character's inherent strengths. You need to boost Tifa's chi up several levels to use her most powerful attacks, but the payoff is worth it because you can combo strike with one powerful blow linked into another with those crunching sound effects driving the point home. Aerith's buff spells, like the Arcane Ward, make magic shooting even more fun, doubling your spells.
You'll be blown away!
And she can go on offensive outbursts too, with Tempest and some weapon abilities that send out rays of death toward everything and everyone. Those stats? Well, cycle through the party members and you'll see just how wildly different they are. It's a much better representation of the in-game party members' abilities and shortcomings. While you can still swap materia all over the place, like the original, here, each member's weapons can be customized individually. Remember the old game, where every chapter and every weapon store simply meant a bigger, better, stronger weapon? Well, here, you can acquire separate abilities that develop each weapon into a certain archetype. Not every weapon is going to immediately increase how many materia slots you have. This means weapons like the Buster Sword remain relevant and powerful, becoming an all-round type of weapon that Cloud can use until the endgame. Others assume their identity in even better ways than the original, with something like the Nail Bat being almost entirely focused on crushing physical attacks and strength buffs, and that makes total sense. Barrett can customize himself to be a tank with lots of materia slots, surprisingly making him a great healer for the group in boss battles. Or you can swap to one of those big cannons and have him purely firepower based. If you spend at least a little bit of time with each weapon, you also master their inherent ability, making your fighters even more well-rounded and stocked with attacks for many different situations, enabling players combinations like using Barrett's melee weapon attacks while still wielding a projectile gun. It's undeniably more robust, interesting, and sensible than the PlayStation 1 game. Fighting becomes challenging too. Remember in the original, when you just bought a bunch of all materia? You could just unleash Fire 3 on the entire world, or heal your entire party, all without breaking a sweat. In Remake, not only is the all materia, now called Magnify, nerfed a lot, it halves the effectiveness of spells when you send it out to everyone. You can only find one of them in the entire game, and it's not even in an obvious spot. This is of course unless you're a die-hard completionist, and you do all of Chadley's requests for the second one. So, your days of spamming all-encompassing Omni heals or firestorms across the map, those are in the past. Instead, you have to be more precise, more aware of enemy weaknesses and the party status. Sure, the whole group may be weak against ice, but you have to use multiple party members to cast an ice spell in order to make sure that you hit everybody with that weakness. It makes limits like Aerith's healing wind and new materia like Prey much more crucial. Bosses like the Hell House seem nigh unstoppable, flying around and shooting missiles, eating players and spitting them out. I'll admit, I got wiped out a couple times the first time I played through.
The brave and beautiful Cloud and Aerith, would-be champions reduced to food for the beast. We will never forget your sacrifice.
It all seems hopeless until you figure out how to pierce its shield and use elemental affinities to your advantage. Unlike the original, when it was just yet another enemy you just pound away at until it disappeared. The Airbuster, it changes up its tactics, as you saw, starting like the original fight, but then moving all around like a crazy person that happens to be armed with cannon shells and laser beams before igniting and flying around and forcing you to adapt using magic and summons and making the most of Barrett's attacks and special abilities. It's in these climactic showdowns that the summoning materia becomes as important as it should have been in the original, appearing when you need it the most and giving the high-stake fights the best visual effect showcases for the game. Speaking of which, only one summon materia per character. No more loading up Cloud with infinite summons and charging into battle. If I'm stating this right, I believe you can only manage one summon in the entire battle regardless of what boss it is. So, it must be chosen wisely. Probably my favorite fight in the remake is the clash between Rufus and Cloud. I was simply relieved they even kept it in there, but I was not prepared for this multifaceted, trick-shooting, reload interrupting, split timing, dog-fighting dance that this becomes. It's exhilarating, especially when you compare it to the original, where it was simply attack, 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 heal once in a while, and repeat. You still need to get rid of that dog-cat guardian first, like the old game, but it's much more strenuous to do so, and failing results in animations that make sure you know you screwed up. There's so many phases to this fight, and reactions from Cloud and Rufus that you might encounter if you do exceedingly well or really badly.
Not bad.
It's so well done that it steals the show, even from some of the endgame encounters. For me, at least.
Oh no. Tifa's crying. Did I say something wrong?
Cloud, cocky and disinterested. Barrett. Action, no thought process. Tifa, motherly, yet unable to speak her real feelings. Unless she's calling Barrett a retard of all things. Aerith, sweet, demure mage who likes Cloud and wants to stop Sephiroth. Fascinating cast, right? I'm not trying to oversimplify it. The development is there, and the characters do change more than I'm describing here, but looking back, and especially comparing it to the remake, there's not a lot of huge character moments or progression. Cloud and Barrett's opposition to the fate of the planet, for example, is given much more weight here. In the original, it was a one-time conversation in an elevator, where Barrett's like, "The planet's dying, Cloud!" who just kinda, shrugs it off. Here, when the two talk about the situation of the people, Cloud suggests leaving it all behind, as that's what's always worked for him. And Barrett makes him flinch by countering with,
"Well, that's all well and good, if you're only out for yourself."
Much more weight behind this. This also comes into play at a later point, right before Seventh Heaven is attacked by the Whisperers. Barrett is so dismayed with Cloud's emotional aloofness that he is not hiring him for that second mission. He's out. He's cut and gone.
Gonna have to ask you to leave now. This here's a private affair.
Barrett's idealism is much more impactful here. He's capable of rousing speeches that address the moral and logistical qualms the Avalanche members inevitably are sorting through in their minds as they cause damage and destruction, potentially killing many people through their actions. That speech is confident and profound. It has the makings of a real leader who people want to support.
Nothing worth fighting for was ever won without sacrifice. Though you may not be crying out, I know you're in pain, just like the planet. But it's okay, cause I'm here for you, to help take the load off your shoulders.
Now, let's look at the original. They burst through a flaming emergency exit. Barrett stands and watches Wedge catch on fire before saying, Okay, let's meet back at the hideout. Then he's gone, out of there. Like it shows in the Ultimania review, one of his quotes, I'm going, gone, and I'm leaving the thinking to you. He doesn't even acknowledge Cloud's non-payment yet.
And yes, your fees. Whatever your problem, I got you.
And no one bothers to say anything because they don't expect any words of wisdom from this freedom-fighting lunatic in the first place. It's no wonder why Cloud is so eager to get out of this job. The guy in charge is portrayed as just a carnage-loving badass who wants to destroy things simply because the end justifies the means. But maybe that's not your jam at all. You're more into the deepening bonds between Cloud and the ladies. Well, you're in luck. There's more romantic tension with Tifa and Cloud too.
Huh?
Come on, how many of us loved when Cloud chooses to be a badass, scoop Tifa up in his arms, and roll with her out of that taken over train?
You okay?
It's natural, but also gives Cloud and Tifa shippers some added ammo for seeing that building physical chemistry between them. Everyone enjoys the I won't tell Tifa moment between Cloud and Marlene as he tries to skirt his way through the juggling act in the developing love triangle between himself, Tifa, and Aerith. Don't get me wrong, the original had some memorable stuff here too. But to hear Aerith's questioning tone when Cloud refers to Tifa while first hanging out with her, it just makes the whole complicated dynamic feel more real.
Tifa? Is Tifa like your girlfriend?
No.
Bet she's someone special.
Speaking of Tifa and Aerith, the structure of the game encourages the player to do as many side quests as possible in order to achieve maximum positive feeling was behind this. Anyway, even if it is simply a one-on-one conversation, it's meaningful. Cloud actually says,
If you want to talk, I'm listening.
this is a miracle on its own. That doesn't happen if you don't stick it out. Oh, don't be gross. I mean, stick it out and go through the admittedly redundant extermination quests and other padded runtime excursions. Aerith, she has her own absolutely adorable escapades with Cloud. There's something about seeing Cloud carrying a flower basket through town that just exemplifies his character.
We can almost feel how absolutely uncomfortable Cloud is while doing this.
Which ones do you think we should pick?
Any of them.
So, how do you think they'll arrange these flowers?
Dunno.
Well, we'll soon find out. Let's go.
But seeing those small cracks appear, like when he responds to Aerith's talking flower conversation, it's so endearing.
Kidding. They didn't say a word. But, never mind. It's not like you'd believe me after all.
Probably not. Tell me anyway.
Cloud wants to be a dreamer, a quality that all three of his companions have, at least to some extent. And he makes that effort here. It's really sweet, actually. I mean, his personality has been suppressed for so long, Cloud can't even manage a high five.
Huh? Wait a minute. Did you just...
Nope.
He is much slower to warm up to Aerith here. And that's okay, because we have more time to spend with them. In the original, instantly after meeting her, she's like, you can go out with me once. And he's like, yeah, that's swell. And then he's laughing at her comment about joining Soldier and being a cocky prick. Here, it's much more well-developed and nuanced. Even though, I can't get over Aerith swearing here.
I'm not some princess who needs to be coddled.
Remake or not, Aerith swearing? That just doesn't feel natural. Anyway, your payoff for helping out Sector 5 is increasing the quality and spectacle of Aerith's dress, which you didn't have any choice over in the PS1 game. So, it's well worth it. Remake also allows for a real friendship to form. Well, here we go. They're talking about a shopping trip. And they suggest that Cloud will, have to carry both of their purchased items. Whew, that's much more family friendly. So it's as in like Cloud's completely a whipping boy.
Cloud can carry all our stuff.
No, okay. But seriously, the chance that they actually would become friends is much more realistic here. The encouragement Aerith gives Tifa as the plate gets attacked.
We have to get past, whatever it takes. Right.
The way they kick perverts' asses in Don Corneo's disgusting imprisonment, it all adds up to helping Tifa and the party's motivation to save Aerith from Shinra all the more sensible.
Compared to you.
There's even cute jabs between all three, like Aerith assuring the three of them will be safe from the ghosts because her bodyguard, Cloud, will protect them.
We've got a bodyguard, don't forget. Mine.
But Tifa's like, hey, back off there, woman, you're not gonna hold my man's arm like that. And they proceed together. There's such a close bond formed between all three. And I'm super curious, who did you wake up first in the sewers? It very well may be the difference maker between who Cloud confides in before the endgame, where even more cracks in his emotionless facade become visible. The scene is masterful. His struggle to acknowledge Tifa's emotion until so long into the hug, but finally acknowledging her emotion, then overcompensating to the point of hurting her. It's exactly what I imagine Cloud doing in that situation.
Cloud, you're hurting me.
And the slow build-up we mentioned with Aerith makes groundbreaking moments like,
Do I get a say in all this?
referring to not falling in love with her, land so incredibly well. The best way I can explain the remake's superiority when it comes to this is comparing how Aerith saves Marlene. In the original, we got Tifa asking Aerith to find a girl named Marlene. After everything with the plate and all the explosions and Turk battle happens, Aerith's in the helicopter, simply yells out, "Don't worry, she's safe." And then, oh look, it turns out Aerith was right. Everything happened completely off screen, but yay, happy days for Barrett and friends. The remake shows how arduous of an experience this was for the Flower Girl. Helicopters almost crashing down on her head, constant explosions, people aggressively and unnecessarily shoving her each time one of them runs past. What's the deal with that? What would possess someone to shove a stationary bystander as they flee for their lives? If anything, it slows you down and wastes your energy. Anyway, she finally makes it to the smoldering seventh heaven, and in one of the remake's strongest additions, the fragile, scared Marlene establishes a bond of trust with Aerith, complete with the music and visual camera work that made many a grown man shed a few tears. A shout out to Marlene's voice actor too. The precocious yet sensitive and sweet nature is just so endearing, and the conversation that she and Aerith share, it breaks your heart.
That's why I came to find you. Are they gonna destroy the bar? Are they gonna destroy our house?
I know it's hard.
Just remember, you still have your daddy. You can build a new home together, anywhere.
Aerith giving herself up, convincing Marlene that everything's going to be okay, even with all these creepy people and loud helicopters blazing around. Damn. This is the additional content that I wish Remake did more of, instead of using it mostly for side quests attributed to know-nothing, non-important polygonal models that wear awful clothing.
No?
This here is memorable. Then there's some moments in the original that weren't realistic in the least, even at the time of release.
Why would the actual president of Shinra walk down a one-way catwalk unprotected and unguarded towards 3 violent terrorists who absolutely hate him and want to destroy everything about him and everything he's ever done?
Barrett could and should have just captured him right there. He barely even speaks either, just a couple sentences, and then he's like, "You're beginning to bore me." Well, joke's on him. How long did that take him to trot his fat can out there in the first place? The remake's use of holographic imagery, which incidentally was also used after Aerith's capture, instead of Barrett literally firing bullets at her direction in the helicopter. Anyway, the hologram of Shinra not only makes more sense from the standpoint of self-preservation, it also allows him to taunt the Avalanche members, even during the boss fight, making it very irritating for Barrett. And it also gives the party an idea to make a big show to broadcast it to Midgar.
Then I say let's give him one. Let's take down Shinra's big-ass neck in front of everybody.
Furthermore, it makes it much more satisfying for the first act's climax. Shinra wasn't even seen on screen when he was executed in the original. It's like, oh, I guess the president's dead, and maybe Sephiroth's a good guy. Oh, that's amazing writing right there. More off-screen stuff. But thankfully, Remake happened. First, you get that amazing, satisfying feeling of Barrett getting the upper hand on an absolutely desperate, cowardly, whining Shinra president, who immediately returns to his ruthless self upon reaching his office and firearm. And then, when Sephiroth, or at least a Genova manifestation of him, appears and stabs him, it's like, yeah, you deserve that. I could have gone without the Barrett fake-out death. It seems just like an obvious gotcha moment that's immediately undone by the whispers.
Thanks.
But this video isn't about the meta vibe. That's for a future discussion. Very quickly, just a few extra kudos. The kid rescue quest is so cute. Just hearing how absolutely pumped the two kids are after Cloud saves them.
Thank you. It was so cool, you guys. Especially that, oh, yeah! Yeah, it was really cool and you went like, yeah!
He's immediately in hero status, and it's just adorable. This ends up being the beginning of a whole dynamic that wasn't present in the original. How the kids in the slums get along, work together, and survive. The Avalanche crew are also much more defined. You can investigate Jessie's past, her memories, and future ambitions. You learn that Biggs was once the head honcho at the orphanage in Sector 5. And Wedge, well, we find out that he likes cats, which is something. I mean, that cat facial hair rendering technology, that's pretty great. Right? Wedge's comic relief, though, is even more pronounced than the original, and he has so much heart and passion for his cause, with a self-sacrificial nature that wasn't evident before. When Wedge launches in front of Cloud, getting himself entangled in steel chains, Cloud is genuinely touched and concerned, something he thought he was past feeling. Small touches like having Tifa and Cloud both interact with Jessie instead of this contrived and rushed dialogue choice solidifies the camaraderie among friends that Tifa doesn't want to lose and that Cloud had just begun to understand. It makes that emotional outpour of Barrett's just all the more devastating. And all of it intensifies the amount of sacrifice needed to make a difference in Final Fantasy VII's world. Speaking of the world at large,
Before getting started here, yes, I'm well aware that this difference is mostly due to the vast growth in computer technology that occurred within the quarter century between games.
of course, Square couldn't have filled every square inch of Midgar with dozens of NPCs who all had different thoughts and opinions. However, we can't deny the amount of realism and weight added to Avalanche's actions when those types of numbers are there, grieving, panicking, and freaking out over all of this unplanned destruction. There's quite a variety of situations going on. People who are enduring physical trauma of various severity, families who are in shock, or who can't find loved ones, and the smoke, flames, and collapsing debris within scripted moments of additional destruction springing up to shake the resolve of the whole Avalanche crew, as well as everyone on the upper plate. It's not just seen in the intro either, as Shinra uses the power of corrupt media to paint Barrett's team in the villain role. You get a huge outcry in Sector 5, and seeing Kairi jump on this opportunity to spew all the rumors about Wutai's involvement makes such a relevant point, as it echoes what social media influencers try and do today, just in a much lower tech setting.
They're nothing more than pawns of Wutai, puppets dancing to the tune of their foreign masters. And that's the truth.
Besides the plot, the increased scope and numbers make piddly events in the original seem much more consequential. When Cloud is scrambling to avoid the Shinra forces, it assuredly feels overwhelming, with increased numbers and strength of soldiers as you wade through waves of security. Whereas in the original, you're a half-inch purple blob on a peaceful street fighting against other half-inch blue blobs. You can simply stand in one area of town over and over again, cutting down soldiers with that same background until the game script tells it, well, this obviously isn't a challenge to the player. Get them to the train. During calmer moments in the script, you get accustomed to the lifestyle of the slum residents, of which there are now hundreds, in many different capacities, despite all sharing some tough conditions. Although it's kind of sad how few models they use to craft all the people. Look at this! There's 3 of the same young woman here, and she's in completely different roles in every situation. Still, it's remarkable how many variants there are when it comes to roles people play. Everyone's in the slums, but some are optimistic and good-natured, while others are far more cynical and have let themselves feel defeated. Class and wealth, it doesn't always determine one's outlook. The neighborhood watch keeps morale high, while youngsters quietly work out and train, hoping to prove their worth in the near future. I mean, that's slightly more variety than all these sharp-edged polygonal blobs walking around, one of them simply stating that their entire purpose is to look at the ground. Whoa, that's a stupendous character arc right there. There's both supporters and refuters of Avalanche's actions, which is realistic. There's never going to exist a situation where 100% of people agree or disagree with an established cause. And there's some innocent stuff too. A girl wondering why Cloud carries around such a big-ass sword.
What's the big sword for?
And then questioning Tifa why she's with him when the two start work together.
Hey, Miss Lockhart, who's that guy you're with?
Speaking of, you'll hear gossip about relationships and dating, you hear debates among cliques of friends, you hear the stress and tension of Shinra workers as they try to deal with the fallout.
I hate being left in the dark like this.
This kind of thing isn't supposed to happen. I thought the war was over. Please, just leave me alone.
You see kids hanging out together, or co-workers sharing banter. People share their last job experience or ambitions for their next work. They want to do anything just to get by.
Me wanting to leave Midgar didn't go over so well.
You want to leave?
I'm just tired of being on the bottom rung.
People are doing anything to get by, looking for food within the trash bins, pulling iron beams out of the ground for scrap metal. Even kids are doing that, and some are still clinging to dreams of moving topside, even if they're just fooling themselves.
My sister on the plate came down to visit me, and she looked like a completely different person.
I wish I could live topside like her.
It's such a grim reality. For what it's worth, Cloud's reputation actually does improve as you do mercenary work, as people's responses indicate.
Is that who Wedge mentioned?
Good job ridding us of that pest.
Hey, that new guy? Heard he's a vet.
There he is! I knew you were the right man for the job.
It's so well represented as a crappy, downtrodden, monster-infested dystopia, and Cloud, he legitimately does mercenary work to improve this squalor. A merc is what he's always been labeled as, but aside from the reactor missions, his job description doesn't seriously apply to anything else in the original. While being restricted to Midgar upset many fans, knowing how little of the actual plot would be redone, it made logistical sense on the underpowered PS4, and enabled Square to expand on the city, giving players much more detailed recreations of established areas. The introductory cutscene alone sets such a stark tone between the dearth of vegetation and nature and the omnipotence of the Shinra Company. But we need some specifics to guide us. First is a glimpse of the upper plate life, which also enabled an excuse to put more motorcycle racing in, building on a minigame that was mostly enjoyed by a lot of the fans. While you only get to interact with one house in the entire upper plate section, there is an entire block you can freely run around, letting you witness just how much cleaner, expensive, and easier these Upper Shinra family's lifestyle is compared to the slums. I admit, I was hoping they'd go farther with this concept. It would have been cool to see more of the population go about their day, or see the eateries and entertainment venues that no doubt exist for the pleasure of the rich, instead of only seeing a few vague bystanders running onto the street and reacting to the bedlam after Cloud and company make a huge commotion in the military complex in the middle of the night. Still, it's a culture and spectacle only implied in the first game, never seen explicitly. Then you've got Wall Market. It's astonishing how different this is. Look at the original. It looks like if you just went wandering into a rural Midwestern America hamlet, just shooting the crap with the locals, with big piles of old junk piled up into a corner of town, a couple makeshift little stalls here and there for supplies. The Wall Market here is a thriving, bustling juggernaut of atmosphere that has so much going on. It can take a couple hours just to look at all the food stands, listen to all the cringy advertisers and visitors, and take in all the sights. It's so much more interesting, especially with the additions of the dance parlor and the combat arena. You could legitimately see a certain segment of our own population spend oodles of time and money during a weekend at a time and place like this. It's like the Las Vegas Strip of video games right here, complete with MMA fights and elaborate, intricately choreographed dance numbers and shows. Everything's over the top, but it makes so much sense, both in conjunction with who owns this place and as a natural expansion of what the original tried to imply with its humble honeybee house.
Nice. Very nice.
Oh.
Shall I pick you? Yeah.
When you near the end of the game, it's so cool to pose as a visitor in the Shinra HQ, as Cloud's party is forced to play the role of tourist to update their keycards. We're given glimpses into the entire head staff at Shinra through these pre-recorded messages and holograms, which encapsulates the arrogance, greed, and bigotry of all the head Shinra employees so magnificently.
My duties as Director of Research and Development are, in all likelihood, far beyond your ability to comprehend.
It also delves into President Shinra's rise to power, painting a glorious golden picture of just how much he really thinks of himself. This builds a lot of well-deserved hostility and paints the antagonists in a much clearer light, since they are such awful people. Except for Reeve, who honestly doesn't make any sense. Why would Shinra have such a non-corrupt, stand-up guy in such a powerful position? It would seem to go against their entire philosophy of greed and corruption. Gamers, please share with me, how do you explain Reeve? How is he employed by Shinra?
We will build a new Mako-powered metropolis.
Mr. President, we still don't know for sure that the Promised Land even...
Hojo's lab is much more intricately designed. While I admit, yes, this is definitely padding, and it takes drastic measures to make sure you can't have a 4-person fighting party. There's so many levers, junctions, and areas you have to get through, either by stealth or force, and it makes you motivated to find that ugly bastard and give him what he should have coming to him. The way the developers transformed blah enemies, like those bladed millipedes, into bosses that span 2 different party squads in 2 separate locations, or these gas pod machines into formidable claustrophobic boss opponents, it's just fantastic.
I remember you!
And he remembers us, I think.
I'm glad I'm ending with the world building, because man, if Square Enix can infuse this much player engagement with a fictional world simply in Midgar alone, just imagine the potential for interactions within Junin, the Gold Saucer, Cosmo Canyon, each with their own distinct attitudes towards life, the state of the planet, and opinions about Shinra. Remake does a fantastic job at taking the strongest elements of Final Fantasy VII, being the beloved characters, the downtrodden rags versus riches setting, and bolstering them to new heights, while taking game mechanics and character advancement that was already a decade behind the times, and infusing it with more action, more player decisions, and freedoms to fight, which is necessary given the additions made to the opponent's AI and strategies. The original Final Fantasy VII could have done this. They could have given the Avalanche members more screen time and dialogue. They could have made the combat something other than what it had already been for the last decade, and all of that was within the constraints of the technology at the time, but Square didn't. So here, I just want to give credit where it's due for the effort that was made the second go-around to improve a game that had such a huge expectation and fandom pressure around it.
Remake isn't perfect. Not by a long shot. Let these words be known.
First and foremost, we will have to spend a minimum of $200 and likely 10 years to experience a new version of Final Fantasy VII, which has an altered plot that may end up completely different than we want it to be. That sucks. I mean, the demands placed on a gamer for that is unreasonable on so many levels. Elements of the game design too are rightly criticized. The meta nature, with all the whispers and such, automatically alienates a segment of the fanbase who really value preserving the past, and it's a topic I'll visit in a future video. Pretty soon too, so stay tuned. I learned in my fairly critical review of Super Mario RPG Remake just how much gamers actually might prefer remakes that mostly mirror everything. However, Final Fantasy Remake's strengths radiate all the way through. That's what made it easy to pick three things. The combat continues to evolve, the characters continue to get their own moments and development, and the entire setting and populace of Midgar becomes a much richer entity.
In the grand scheme, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will hopefully draw players even deeper into the world and continue to develop this cohesive story structure, which truly feels like it's affecting everyone and everything on the planet, which of course lends itself to the ultimate fate of Gaia. Speaking of Rebirth, if you're as excited as I am for it, check out my Hopes and Worries video. You may find some topics we can discuss as the next Final Fantasy time sync grows ever closer. If you want a detailed analysis on the original PS1 game, I've got you covered here as well. And if you want a wider swath of reviews and retrospectives, please like and subscribe for more. Hey, thanks so much for spending some time here at Gaming Introspection. It's always good to see you, gamers. Take care, and I hope 2024 is off to a great start for you.